Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the teams that I think can actually win a national title. It is very, very hard to put this list together. I had 13 teams on there. I might have been a little bit kind with Arizona State and Texas Tech, but I like to live in the clouds just a little bit as we get closer to college football season. So I got 13 teams. I think you could cut it down to about 10 if I'm being totally honest. So it's going to be a couple of teams that really have a shot. It'll be awesome to see if anyone not on this list would have popped up in my mind because there's a couple of teams that wouldn't have made the list last year that definitely popped into the list very, very quickly. So we'll get into that obviously as it gets closer. Maybe some teams will pop up during fall camp that I'll have a little bit more confidence in. But as of right now, I feel pretty good with those 13 being the teams that can actually get it done and lift that trophy. But let's get into the biggest questions. For each power conference, I have one big time question that I think will just define the season. I think one way or another, this question will really define what that conference is and how that conference shakes out this upcoming year. And let's jump into this, and we'll start over in the SEC. To me, it's very, very clear. Which first year starter is going to step up? Which first year starter is going to be the game changer that a lot of these guys have been made out to be? Whether you want to talk about Arch Manning at Texas or DJ Lagway, a little bit of a different circumstance, obviously played a little bit last year, but didn't quite get the run that he would have loved to get and that I think a lot of us would have loved to see him get last year. So he's still a relatively new guy. Gunnar Stockton, kind of the same situation there. Ty Simpson, Austin Simmons, a ton of other guys coming in and their first year starting. It's going to be really interesting to watch this, and frankly, you look at the guys, I think it's going to come down to who steps up the biggest. Is Arch Manning going to be the guy that a lot of people are making him out to be? And if he is, it might just be Texas conference to win, or Texas conference to lose, frankly. And then if DJ Lagway puts it together, Florida's got a nightmare of a schedule. Frankly, part of the reason they were not in the teams that could win the national title is that schedule, but if DJ Lagway puts it together, that could be a terrifying team that, with that defensive line and DJ Lagway hitting his receivers in stride, could be a very interesting team very quickly. So I think when you talk about the first-year starters, whether you want to bet on Arch Manning or DJ Lagway or Gunnar Stockton or Austin Simmons, it's going to play into how this conference shakes out. I think you have Alabama, you have Texas, you have Georgia. At the very least, those three teams are going to be very much a part of this conversation, and then Florida could very easily be a part of that if Lagway hits. Ole Miss could very easily be a part of that if Austin Simmons hits the way they want. And then you have guys coming in from the portal. Well, Jackson Arnold just kind of moved teams, but Jackson Arnold over at Auburn, you have John Mateer taking his spot at Oklahoma. You have new guys coming in from all over the place, but in my opinion, you have those three guys in particular. You have Arch Manning, you have Ty Simpson, and you have Gunnar Stockton. Those three teams will be in the conversation. Which one of those three quarterbacks will step up in a big way and get their team over the hump? I tend to believe that's the team that's going to win this conference unless Garrett Nussmeier or Lenora Sellers wants to come in and just ruin the fun for all the first-year starters. Very much on the table for them to rain on the youngins' parade. But at the end of the day, I do think this is going to define the conference. Does Arch Manning step up in a big way? If so, it's probably Texas's conference. If Gunnar Stockton steps up in a big way, it's going to be Georgia's conference. If none of them step up, it's probably going to be LSU or maybe even South Carolina. So a lot of things going into play here, but in the way I'm looking at the SEC right now is a whole lot of teams are introducing new guys as their starting quarterback. Which one hits, and if they hit, or is that team just the far and away favorite to win this conference? Moving over to the Big Ten, it's as simple as is Penn State ready to take over. I love this conference. I think it's going to be a really intense conference. I think it's going to be very competitive. When I look at Penn State, they are the best on paper. They have the team that has the most returning starters. They are the team that I feel probably the best and most stable about what they have at quarterback. They have the run game to go along with it. They upgraded in my mind, at defensive coordinator and at the wide receiver core, the two places that they probably needed to upgrade the most. And then you have they're 25th in the country in returning production, top 10 in offensive returning production. The team has a runway in the schedule to kind of get going and get everything under their feet. This is the chance that Penn State has. It's very, very simple. Penn State is in a position where not only are you set up as well as you've been set up in a very long time, Ohio State's not set up in as great of a spot as they have been in the last 5 years. Now, Ohio State's going to be Ohio State, but breaking in Julian Say and having a lot of guys on that defense have to step up in big ways and a lot of moving parts on those defense, it's going to change a lot of things. There's no doubt about that. Oregon breaking in a new starting quarterback, just had probably their best offensive player injured in Evan Stewart. There's an opening here, and there's an opening where Penn State's going to be able to play really good football. If Penn State is able to take the steps forward in the pass game the way that they hope to with these new wide receivers, in the defensive side of the ball, especially the defensive backfield, if they can take a step forward there, they are going to be the team to beat in this conference. Now, Ohio State is going to be part of this conversation. So is Oregon, Indiana, Illinois, maybe even Michigan will get in on this conversation. But the reality is, if Penn State is ready to take over, if Penn State is ready to take the steps forward that they've been kind of waiting and taking their time to take the last couple of years, they're going to be the team to beat, and I think everyone else is playing for second. I know that sounds crazy to say with a Penn State team that hasn't gotten over that hump in a very, very long time, but this team has just about everything in place while the rest of the conference is looking around trying to figure out quite a few things. So the way that I look at this, if Penn State's ready to step up, if they make the steps forward that a lot of us expect them to make, I think it's Penn State's conference to lose, frankly. And that sounds crazy saying because it's been Ohio State's for a long time. It's been Michigan's for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think this is Penn State's year. I think if they put it together, if they're ready to take over, I think it's Penn State's conference, no doubt about it. Then you move over to the Big 12, and it's the question that we'll probably have every single year going forward. How many teams aren't in this thing? How many teams are not in the race to win this conference? Because, frankly, if you asked me last year, I probably would have left Arizona State off this list. I probably would have said they genuinely do not have a shot to win this conference. They won the conference, so I have no earthly idea how many teams are actually in this thing. What I can tell you is 7 teams are plus 1,000 or better to win this conference. It's all over the place. Whether you want to talk about Arizona State or Kansas State returning Avery Johnson. I don't know why I blanked on that name. Kansas State. You have Iowa State, obviously coming back with Rocco Beckton. A lot of really, really great pieces over there in Ames. You have a number of other teams. You have Utah bringing in Devin Dampier. A lot of really good teams in this conference, and a lot of teams that are right around each other. TCU with Josh Hoover, who's going to be a really interesting team. And then right below those 7 teams, Baylor, another one up there that absolutely will have something to say about this conference. And then right below that, you have Kansas and Jalen Daniels, a guy that can take over just about any second he wants and be a total difference maker in 2 seconds. He's an absolute beast and someone that can take over this conference. Now, I don't know if I'm betting on him to, but at the end of the day, we saw what happened when he was fully healthy and really got his feet under him last year. They went on a 4-game win streak where they beat 3 ranked opponents. They are going to be a good team and definitely a team that can make it happen. And then the rest of the conference is kind of up for grabs. Can Colorado find it and really put it together for the second year in a row with Dion? Can Houston's portal class really hit kind of an Arizona State level last year? Can they get Connor Wegman going? Can they get Tanner Koziel being the top tight end in the conference? Rich Rod, can he bring magic back to Morgantown? Could Scott Frost do that in the bounce house? I know some people are picking that. I wouldn't pick that if I'm being totally honest, but at the end of the day, I see 8 that are really, really in it. 8 teams that are absolutely, without a doubt, going to be in this conversation deep into the season. And then you have a Cincinnati, you have a Houston, you have a Colorado that, if the perfect situation plays out, and maybe they can put it together. So right now I can say 11 teams can win this conference. I probably wouldn't have included Arizona State. As I said earlier, I probably wouldn't have included them if you asked me last year who can win this conference. So what do I know? What does anyone know about the Big 12 right about now? I know a lot of teams are in it. I can tell you that. And a lot of teams will have their fair share to say about what the Big 12 is this year. And I can't wait to watch it all unfold. But finally, we got to get over to the ACC. And very similar to the Big 10 question, just a little bit more aggressive. Is it Clemson and everyone else? Is it just Clemson's conference and everyone else is just playing for who gets to play Clemson and Charlotte? Is it everyone just trying to play for another CFP spot while losing to Clemson? Is that the dynamic of this conference? Or is it a little bit more even-keeled than we're thinking right now? Because Clemson is replacing some guys. Phil Maffa is a huge player for that team that they're having to replace. Obviously, Jake Burningstool going to be a huge player. They have to replace some guys on defense that walked out the door. It'll be a different team. it just feels like Clemson is the best team in this conference, and it might be by a margin. Now, obviously, Miami will have the best shot to pull this off. They have the type of dudes that Clemson has. Now, I don't know if they have them in droves the way that Clemson has, but I do think that Miami, at least from a physical perspective, matches up the best. And then Carson Beck's got to rise to the moment. Will they be able to handle Peter Woods and TJ Parker if they were to play them? A lot of different moving parts there. Miami obviously going to be the team that has the best shot. Louisville, another team to watch for sure. You have Miller Moss coming in. Jeff Brom has been a little bit tough on Clemson, especially last year. They went into Clemson and beat the crap out of that team. One way or another, they really beat the crap out of that team from tip to tail, and I think now you look forward and it's really hard to doubt what Louisville can be. Georgia Tech, another team that a lot of people are watching right now, maybe watching just a little bit too much. It's always that time of year when you start talking about sleepers, and the more you talk about one team being a sleeper, they become not a sleeper, but at the end of the day, they do play Clemson in Atlanta in week 3, and maybe Georgia Tech wins that one. And if they do, then this conference is totally turned on its head. And then obviously you have SMU with Kevin Jennings coming back. Now, they're replacing some guys that I think are massive for that team, and we'll get into some more details obviously over the next couple of weeks, but SMU will be in that conversation. Can Pitt put it together with Eli Holstein? Can Florida State put it together with Thomas Castellanos? Because he's talking a lot, I'll tell you that. If he is as good as he talks, that team could definitely play for an ACC championship. I don't expect that to happen, but at the end of the day, there are plenty of dark horses in this conference. It just feels like Clemson is setting the pace by about 20 meters. Now, I don't know if someone can close the gap, and I don't know if Georgia Tech will just trip them up in week 3, but at the end of the day, it feels like it's Clemson and everyone else. That could change in a hurry. But we'll find that out pretty quickly, and I think right now I would bet on Clemson pretty aggressively in the ACC. There's plenty of teams right around them that could make that very questionable very quickly. So a lot of questions as we head into these power conference seasons, because these are going to be weird conferences. I think the SEC, what is the dominant team? I think a lot of people are tabbing Texas, but I think they're betting on Arch Manning to be the guy that a lot of people have made him out to be. Will he end up being that guy is the big time question. In the ACC, is it just Clemson and everyone else? You have Penn State. Are they ready to make the big time step forward? And then just who can win the Big 12? How many teams can't win the Big 12? Frankly, there might be no one that can't win it in that conference. It is so all over the place that I wouldn't bet against anyone. But going to be awesome to watch all of this unfold. Obviously, we'll get into a couple more micro questions as we get into a little bit more of a micro look at these conferences. But at the end of the day, let's take a little bit of a break here, and then we got to talk about recruiting. It's been blowing up the last little bit, and a big time story out of Lubbock that we'll be talking about right after this, so stick with us.